check. 1, 2, 1, 2. I said microphone check. 1, 2. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Ain't nobody out here winning like me. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Just like me, like me. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Ain't nobody out here winning like me. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Just like me, like me.
What's up, everybody? Good evening and welcome into a very special Aces Wild After Dark here.
After Dark, for real.
On the Undefeated Sports Network. I am your guy, Andrew Tarbill. As always, to my left is the man drinking coffee on this late
tea.
night.
It's tea. It's
Angelo
nice.
Ace Camacho. Ange, what's up, man? We got a special show lined up for the guests tonight. How you doing?
Not bad. It's a little later than we usually go. I'm not happy with my hat selection tonight. But hey, we're going to make it work.
I think you'll make it work. So we have a special guest joining us tonight, guys. Dan Bass Levy will be joining the show here at about 9:45. For those of you that don't know Dan, he's in the podcast world, in the sports media world, kind of all over the place historically. I think he's been on Sirius XM in the past. Dan is the voice of the Brett Boone podcast, voiceover artist, podcaster, podcasting consultant, sports reporter, and food enthusiast. So Dan will be joining us to give his take on the 2024 Chicago Bears thus far, the development of Caleb Williams, and he's going to tell us a few fun stories and experiences that he's had throughout his career in broadcasting. I know he's got the chance to meet some really cool people and personalities over the years, so should be fun to have Dan join the show here later on. But until then, we have a Chicago Bears football team to talk about, my friend. And unfortunately, it's not. Excuse me. Unfortunately, it's not the conversation that we wanted to be having. Right? You had the Bears winning this game, and so did I. Last week, at least, I think originally I said the Bears would lose this game, but Sunday Night Football, Bears versus Texans. Let's recap quick. Bears lose 8th straight Sunday Night Football game to the Texans, 19-13. A bit of a unique game on Sunday night, guys. Everybody knows the spotlight, the story was on Caleb Williams and his ability to take on a top-tier team in the Houston Texans. Ultimately, the Bears fall by 6 to the Houston Texans, which overall, I mean, it's discouraging. Would have liked to see more out of the offense, in my opinion, but you did only lose by 6 to a team that could potentially be deep in the playoffs, possibly even the Super Bowl. So there's some light there. I think the defense is definitely the right spot again, week over week.
I mean,
and
the same old song and dance, right, Tarbill?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. The defense is going to have to be more competitive in the long run to give our offense a chance to kind of warm up. Hopefully we see that happen this week. I think Indianapolis, especially with DeForest Buckner out, is a very beatable team. Hopefully this is kind of that get the wind behind your wings, so to speak, game, and the offense finally takes a step forward. I think I'm done saying that it's going to be a significant step week over week, but hopefully things just start clicking for the Chicago Bears in the pass game. It's clear that this team wants to identify themselves as a pass-first team, right, Ace?
Yeah, and they can't do it.
Historically, we've seen this team be run first, and, as much as everyone dislikes that, the run game opens up a lot of other things offensively. I don't know why the game plan was the way it was against Houston on Sunday night. In my opinion, you don't go out and run outside zones at Will Anderson Jr. That's just never a good idea. You don't run screenplays when Will Anderson Jr. is on the edge. You definitely don't run a questionable personnel choice tight end screen to Gerald Everett when you have 2 wide receivers blocking for him on the left side of the field. One, you throw it to one of those receivers in the receiver screen. 2, if you're going to run the tight end screen, that's got to be to Cole Kmet, right?
I mean, you would think.
I question some of the play calling and personnel choices on offense. Kind of had the same issue last week with Shane Waldron, and I'm hoping that those things correct themselves as we practice. But man, it looked like the offense of old when you saw, I don't know how many screen passes there were during the game, but it felt like Luke Getsy was calling.
That's what I was just about to say. I had to double check to make sure who the offensive coordinator was, because I'll tell you, this offense is it's the same. It actually looks worse than it did last year. And I understand, Justin was a different type of quarterback in terms of his speed and his ability to get out of the pocket and make something happen with his legs. Caleb's more of a, I mean, he can get out of the pocket and make things happen, but he's not a real threat like Fields was to take off and bust 35, 40-yard run,
I don't want to say it's not that he's that much of a threat. It's just that he wants to be a pass first guy. So even when you see him rush, it's more lateral movement, left to right to try to get the ball downfield. And that's not a bad thing, but when your offensive line, that moves right into this next graphic. Our offensive line struggles. We have allowed 7 sacks, 11 hits, and 36 quarterback pressures.
Aren't they cute? Those little offensive linemen down here looking all cute and unmenacing.
I do like it, Angelo. Great presentation. But with that being said, absolutely unacceptable play out of this offensive line thus far, right?
I mean, it was rough week 1. Okay, everybody's, getting familiar with each other. Some people were out. Let's
It was
get on to
greatly
right. Let's get on to week 2, right?
It was greatly amplified in week 2. And I think the biggest problem that we're seeing is that week over week we're not getting better. And our guy Mike, who usually joins us on the network, mentioned that, that's probably one of the best defensive fronts you're going to play all year. Well, it was a similar message against Tennessee. So, I mean, as true as that may be, at some point you've got to be able to stop the bleeding. And if you're only giving your quarterback an average of, 2.6 seconds, I believe it was, in the pocket, and the pocket wasn't even clean that entire time until Caleb's release, it's not a good story. I mean, at 1 second, there was consistent pressure breaking through the offensive line. Nate Davis looked like he was lost out there at times. Didn't know who he was blocking. Tevin Jenkins said after the game that the team is coached to their assignments and they execute the assignments that they're given. That's a little concerning just because there's so much, really it looks like confusion, to say it as nicely as possible, on this offensive line thus far. So you see the guys come out and consistently miss reads. Even when the Texans were not bringing any pressure and it's just 5 against 5, the offensive line struggled to know who their assignment was. I mean, at this level of football, you've got to think that that's not acceptable. And I don't know what Chris Morgan is coaching, if it's a dynamic system where if this guy is lined up in the A gap, you've got him. If he's lined up in the B gap, you've got him. And maybe the guys just aren't there yet. I don't understand what the disconnect is at this point. I do need to go back and watch the all 22 again. I would like to see a little bit more tape in slow-mo, especially on Nate Davis and Coleman Shelton in this game. But another thing that hurts this Bears offensive line is you've now sent Ryan Bates, who was probably your other option to replace Coleman Shelton, to the injured reserve. So now if you're trying to make a switch at center, you're looking at a group of younger guys that are really untested in game time action. Doug Kramer comes to mind, and some of the other guys that we have there. There's really no emerging star, so to speak, that would be an immediate replacement.
And there's nobody you can pick up in free agency right now anyways. You know what I mean? Like all the people on the street, are they going to be an improvement of what you already have.
You got to go pick up the phone. This is going to be my hot take number 1 of the night. Go pick up the phone, call David Bakhtiari, call Jason Kelsey, say, we have $40 million for 2 years of your time, only 2 years. Will you come out of retirement and lead the Chicago Bears to a championship? I don't know if Bakhtiari would do it, but Kelsey would be a game changer.
I don't even know if Bakhtiari can walk at this point.
He can. He was looking for a team to play for this year.
I will say this, you know, it's very concerning, and I know that we have a lot of guys in our little group chat that we have that are very, it's week 2, he's a rookie, it's this, it's that.
The problem is it wasn't supposed to look this bad. Like,
exactly.
There was some room for error, some margin for error.
There were expectations on this team.
But there were also expectations that are not being fulfilled with the level of play.
And my concern is with this offensive line being as bad as it is. We watched it with Cutler. When he came from Denver, the last year in Denver, he was sacked 11 times in Denver before he came to Chicago. And then I believe he was sacked the entire year. And then he comes to Chicago, and I think it's something crazy, like 87 times he was sacked between his first 2 seasons with the Bears. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, that doesn't sound out of the realm of possibility. And I mean, that's the record that Caleb's on track for, being sacked 7 times last
He won't
week.
even have a chance to hit that because he won't make it through the season if this keeps going on.
Yeah.
And not only that,
but
it will significantly hinder his ability to develop during the season. Yeah. Because
absolutely. And that's the one thing you don't want. Sorry to cut you off. That's the one thing you don't want to see happen this season, right?
Right. Because yes, there were expectations for playoffs this year, but also we wanted to watch Caleb develop. We needed to see him develop. And you put him in a situation where eventually he's going to stop looking downfield and start looking at where the pressure is coming from because he's getting hit so often.
Right. And unfortunately, I think you saw that a little bit at times on Sunday night.
Yeah, I think especially towards the end of the game, it really got to the point where he was trying to play that hero ball that he did in college. And, you know, he should have had 3 interceptions. He had 2.
Yeah, one was on DJ Moore, and I think DJ even said that in the press conference. But
yes. And, you know, like, you don't want to rip on your second week quarterback. I won't even say first year. Your second week quarterback, but at the end of the day, man, like, there's been times where he's like the first drive, right? 5 for 5, march downfield, got him in field goal range, kick a field goal. But then, like, the accuracy was the thing that I thought he was going to be better at than Justin Fields was, and he has not proven that so far. He's 0 for 11 on passes 15 yards or more so far this season.
I think a lot of that comes down to footwork. I've been watching a lot of tape breakdowns specifically on Caleb, and it seems that he's really had happy feet over the last 2 weeks, so to speak. He hasn't been able to set his feet and really plant and extend to make that deep throw accurately. And a lot of that comes down to the offensive line, right? I mean, again, if you only have 1 second to make a move to start planting your feet before the offensive line leaks through, it's very difficult for a young quarterback to make those moves. So
yes, but also, you know, there's DJ Moore was frustrated clearly in that game, right? And you heard Collinsworth talk a few times about how, you know, he gave him 5-yard separation. Caleb's got to get the ball to him. You know, he has to. Those are, yes, they're rookie mistakes, and I completely understand. But also, you need to – I need to see improvement. And, yes, we saw little improvement, very little, from Caleb. I read a stat that was something crazy. Here. Right. You know,
Sunday night, 23 of 37, 174 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions with a total QBR of 51.
Yeah. Like, And listen, before I get text messages from people that we know, I understand.
You're a hater, Angelo.
I understand that all the rookie quarterbacks look
Do not look
subpar
great.
so far.
Yes,
I get it. But also, the other rookie quarterbacks did not go to a situation with the caliber of weapons.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one thing that people are forgetting about this situation that Caleb Williams is in here in Chicago, Angelo, is that Caleb Williams came into a team that obviously last week Keenan Allen was hurt and he was still kind of providing that mentorship role on the sideline to our guy Caleb Williams. But you come into an offense that's loaded with weapons in
Hey, I'm back.
DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, obviously Roma Dunze, although he's not probably at 100% after surprisingly coming back after the grade 1 MCL strain there in week 2. I thought that was going to be reversed. I thought Keenan was going to play and Rome would be sidelined. So
I actually listened to Courtney Cronin today, and they think that it's a little more serious than week to week. Like there's talks that it's
with Keenan,
that it could end up being an IR stint and he'll miss at least 4 games. So
I hope that's not the case.
I mean, I do too, but also in the same breath, it's like we kind of knew signing him that was going to be the game. You know what I mean? That he was going to miss games throughout the season. I didn't expect it to be so soon, in the season. But to be fair, you know, the hardest part of the Bears season is at the end of their schedule. So, you know,
if he's healthy at the end of the year, that's all that matters. Ultimately,
right?
You're saying,
right. Yeah. I mean, you would,
and
but it might not matter if this team can't protect their quarterback.
Yeah, that's the thing. Unfortunately, with Caleb, as you alluded to, I mean, the performance not obviously where we expect it to be at this point, but if this offensive line can't true up and really be a force for him to stay behind and throw the ball downfield, he's going to get hurt. And it is, I tell you right now, it is going to be a long season if we see Caleb Williams hurt on the sideline and Tyson Bagent is out there throwing the football. I mean, I know there's a select delusional fan base percentage that believes that could be the move to lead us to the promised land. It wasn't last season when Tyson came in for Justin, and it's not going to be this season if Caleb Williams gets sidelined. But ultimately, really disappointing to see not one bright spot from the offense thus far through 2 weeks. Like, if the run game was working and the pass game was getting there, okay. Or vice versa.
I'm just confused on why it isn't looking better. Like, I know the offensive line is bad, right? But, you know, I was watching a few things on X and on TikTok about, you know, people breaking down the film and stuff like that. And there's a lot of talk that the wide receivers aren't getting separation. You know, you're supposed to have these, you know, and maybe Rome is maybe an exception because he tried to play through, you know, an injury. So you kind of.
And it looks like Angelo's having some technical difficulty as he freezes. We're going to start counting how many times Angelo's internet gives him a fit throughout the show. He will be back momentarily, but I think this
internet thing is driving me absolutely crazy right now.
Hey, you're okay, my friend. We'll work through it. Technical difficulties happen to the best of us.
It is thunderstorming out, so I'm wondering if that has a little bit to play into why it's not as
No, it's not. Oh, wait, you live in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, so not only did I have to go through the Bears losing Sunday Night Football for the 8th time in a row, but I also had to listen to how
the Packers won.
Malik Willis won the game for Green Bay against a terrible Indianapolis Colts team. It's hard. It's hard living up here. I'm telling you. I just
yeah, I can only imagine. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but ultimately, man, there's no one bright spot. That's the concern.
Yep.
Through 2 weeks is that there's nothing that we can point our finger at on offense and say, man, that looked really good.
No,
If
like they were
the
sloppy.
offensive
There was
line
old. There was a
struggles,
bunch of false start penalties, which I get it. Home opener for the Texans, like it's going to be loud, but still, like
sure,
Nate Davis looked awful. Darnell Wright struggled a lot, and he was your first round pick last year.
right.
You know, and Tevin Jenkins, like,
He's a
he
guy.
hasn't. Right, he's a guy at this point. I mean,
Like, that's
it
the
was
problem
me-
is the two biggest pieces on this offensive line that, are supposed to be your flagship guys moving forward really are Darnell Wright and Tevin Jenkins, arguably.
right, and Tevin Jenkins might not be on the team next year if he doesn't play better. You know,
Right.
like,
And
and
Darnell Wright, sure, I mean, give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt through 2 weeks, but man, if you're supposed to be the guy, the number one pick on this offensive line, you did not do yourself any favors through the first 2 weeks at all.
Yep. And now, if it's genuinely, it could be coaching, right? It could be the fact that the coaches
Is Chris
are
Morgan that bad of an offensive line coach, though?
I
I
only
don't
hear good
know.
things about it, but it's been awful. And I know they moved Tevin back to the other side of the line because you brought in Nate Davis, but Nate Davis, dog, if he never touched the field again, I'd be fine with it. He just looks so disinterested in not wanting to be out there. I would never
And
put
it's
him back out.
crazy too. Like, the guy consistently doesn't show up during training camp, right? That's been an issue the last 2 years. This season
Right.
during training camp, he was hurt. Last season, he had some personal matters that kept him away from the team. He comes in, he doesn't look fresh because he hasn't gotten the same amount of reps as everybody else. And you think he's going to build on that during the season. Last season, he kind of hit a stride for a couple games, and then he was injured and he was out for a few weeks and came back, and it was reset and start over. I think the Nate Davis experiment should be over.
I think we really need to, as much good as Ryan Poles has done,
We need to address
it's time to
the
really
lack
question
of
him.
addressing the offensive
You've been here
line.
for 3 years. You've basically patchworked the offensive line every year you've been here. Yes, you addressed it with
Right.
Darnell Wright, but also Lucas Patrick. You brought in a bunch of free agents, trades and this and that. The
Coleman
trades that
Shelton, Ryan Bates.
right, the trades, and now you look at it like the trades that you made. Could you have used those draft picks to get yourself a younger asset on the offensive line and dealt with the same type of productivity?
I'm going to go right back to what I said last week, Ace, and say, would you not much rather have an offensive lineman that you drafted in the 4th round right now than Torrey Taylor?
Punter? Yes, absolutely. Because even he was the best. Yes, I get it. He was the best player on his team because his team was awful.
He only had to punt so much because he played for the University of Iowa.
And I understand the logic. Okay, hey, a punter, yes, when doing his job, pins the other team back against their end zone.
Yeah,
cool.
Absolutely. Field position.
But I would have
important.
much rather have had a young center in the 4th round because then I can accept the struggles.
I don't think there was really anybody there in the 4th round at the center position, but even
could you not have done a situation where instead of trading the pick for Ryan Bates or Coleman Shelton or whoever you wanted to bring on, you couldn't have paired a 4th and that pick to move up?
Right. Cedric Van Pran would look really good on this offensive line right now.
And I get it. I don't think the Bears expected to fall into Rome. And I think if Rome wasn't there, I don't think they would have picked a wide receiver. I think they would have traded back and gotten offensive linemen, which hindsight being what it is, Keenan Allen's injured right now, so it was a smart move. But also, all these weapons that you gave your quarterback, if the dude isn't able to stay upright, what's the point?
Yeah, I don't get it. It's
and
frustrating.
I'm not saying that Poles hasn't done good things because he has. He's done
a lot of great things since he's came to Chicago, but he's not addressing the offensive line is not one of them.
And to be fair, his wide receiver eye isn't that great. He traded for Claypool. That was a terrible situation. He drafted Velus Jones. That was a terrible situation. He fell into Roma Dunze. So
but I'm going to stop you there. He managed to sign DJ Moore to a 4-year extension, guaranteeing 6 years of DJ Moore playing with the Chicago Bears.
Right.
He was actively making phone calls to try to get Roma Dunze sooner. If you would have finished watching Hard Knocks, Ace, and weren't such a hater, I guess you would know that. I'm kidding.
It was terrible, by the way. But continue.
Ultimately, I think, he was making calls to Atlanta and other teams. Hey, can we move one spot to go up and get this guy, etc. Things like that. It just didn't work out. So unfortunately, we're in a situation where now the Chicago Bears don't have really any bright spots on the offensive line. We're struggling to field an offense consistently that can do anything. And we've got all these names. You go out, you lock down DJ Moore, you bring in Keenan Allen, obviously Roma Dunze there. You would think that this team would be able to do much more than it's proven up to this point. Thus far, it's been very lackluster. And
that's why I get frustrated, because regardless, I understand, like we said, I understand he's a rookie, right? Rookie struggle. All the rookie quarterbacks this year have not looked good. But also, like I was saying before, he's come into the best situation that a rookie quarterback can come into. And
yeah, absolutely.
Ryan Poles talked all about, breaking the cycle. But you put him in the same cycle, right? We're sitting in a situation where every time you bring a new young quarterback in, the offensive line is garbage. They get destroyed. We talked about Cutler. And then, and now we're sitting at a spot where, okay, is the offensive coordinator knowing what he's doing, or is he just kind of there? Jackson Smith and Njigba last offseason was asked about what he thought about the Bears getting Waldron, and he had some slick, sly comment about like good luck, basically, is what he was saying. And it's kind of
it definitely makes you question whether the strength there in Seattle was Dave Canales or Shane Waldron, with Geno Smith's development for sure. Really, through these last 2 weeks, I think Shane has a lot to prove in the personnel and play calling department for sure. But all right, guys, looking at the time we are at in the show, our guest is in the green room and ready to join us. So again, guys, we've got Dan Levy joining the show tonight. Dan is the voice of the Brett Boone podcast, a voiceover consultant, voiceover artist, podcaster, podcast consultant, sports broadcaster, and food enthusiast. Really happy to have Dan join the show. So let's go ahead and bring Dan in now. Dan, good evening. How we doing?
It's weird to see my face next to my face. I've never had that happen before.
Yeah, we wanted to prep a little something for you. Appreciate you joining the show tonight, and glad we get to chat with you for a little bit. So
I appreciate you actually doing an intro without having to ask me how I want to be intro. That was perfect.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I may have practiced a little bit. Glad to have you join us tonight.
Why are we shaking your head, buddy? What's wrong?
My internet connection right now is the absolute worst.
Ah, gotcha. So, I was like, man, this guy's throwing shade. It's early. I just got
on. No, not at all.
I live up in Wisconsin, and it's storming right now, so my internet is just been like.
Is it storming out there?
Yeah. It's not terrible, but it's affecting my internet right now for sure.
It affects the internet. Interesting. Gotcha. Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on with us.
No problem. So what's going on, boys?
Great to formally meet you, Dan. We were just chatting a little bit about the Bears and these struggles that we're seeing out of the offense thus far. So we want to get your take on what you've seen out of the Chicago Bears, specifically the offense and Caleb Williams thus far. And do we think there's some bright spots here in the near future, or are we to expect more growing pains over the coming weeks?
Good news, bad news, good news, bad news Bears. Right? If we're gonna do it, let's really strip it down. This team, this franchise has never been offensive orientated. They were gifted Walter Payton. They were gifted Gale Sayers. They were gifted Devin Hester. They were gifted every good running back that's ever come out of this place from Thomas Jones. In fact, when they actually went to go get a real running back in Cedric Benson, he became an actual bust. But they accidentally grabbed these amazing guys. They grabbed the Matt Fortes. They grabbed Thomas Jones. You grab on as Tariq Cohen. My God, all of a sudden that guy was doing, and nobody even heard of the guy. He was 5'5", and he's doing everything out there. When they try to go get wide receivers, it doesn't seem to work out for some reason. One of the main issues that the Chicago Bears offensively have always had, and it continues to be, is who is protecting the quarterback. Who are these plays designed for? Unfortunately, the center is no longer Olin Kreutz. It's a rotating shift. So that is one of the worst parts. A lot of people say the left tackle, the right tackle, whoever is that center is doing the checks and balances for everything. That person is the last person on the defense, literally, pun intended, no pun intended, but that person is overseeing the coverage, overseeing everything that goes into an offense, and therefore the person that is snapping that ball to Caleb Williams has no clue what's going on when he snaps that ball and what the defense has got. Now, unfortunately, the Bears in the first 2 weeks are taking on pretty decent defenses that are going at these guys. It just so happened that they were also playing an elite quarterback. The good news is that despite having just about every positive thing that we were looking forward to in this offseason stripped away, if you think about it from a fantasy football standpoint, from a Chicago Bear fan, if you're gambling on the game of football or a casual observer, before week 1 started, there was 5 things to look forward to for the Bears. A, Caleb Williams, franchise quarterback. We're going to put our hopes on him. We got a brand new offensive coordinator, supposed to be good with quarterbacks. We got a running back from the Philadelphia Eagles in Swift. Then we got not 1, not 2, but 3 wide receivers that are supposed to be there. And by the way, we have Cole Kmet, who has pretty much had the exact same seat I've had for the Bears game. Almost no action for that team. And again, you are dealing with a team that is so new with each other, so not even really sure how to execute. They can draw up all the plays they want, but Caleb Williams is the kind of quarterback who probably could have played at another team, probably should have went to a team that has a really good quarterback and just kind of, roasted in the oven, watch another quarterback do what they do. This is the time when you go out and get a veteran quarterback to kind of show Caleb Williams what he's doing, what he should do out there, like Jordan Love did, like Aaron Rodgers did, like Mahomes did, like Favre did, like Tom Brady, everybody except for Peyton Manning, pretty much. But when you go through that kind of list and think about how everything has collapsed, Keenan Allen is pretty much, I dropped him for my fantasy today. Roman Dunze, I think he's hurt. They're not going to really say it, but that guy couldn't catch a cold, and I think he's hurt. Sorry, Ace. And then when you kind of rewind even more, DJ Moore, the guy who we were loving last year, also isn't getting the kind of love that he should be getting. And plus, DeAndre Swift, we should have known that if the Eagles are willing to deal somebody out, chances are it's kind of like that steak that you see at like Walmart or Aldi, where it's like 50% off, but it expires in 2 days, but it's like a ribeye. You should probably buy it, but it may not be good, maybe a little spoiled. That's what we got going on with the offense. The good news is it's not that bad. When you really boil it down, the last 2 weeks, he never, ever actually ruined the game. It wasn't because of him that they lost. It wasn't because of him that they were in a part where they could have dominated. But he didn't throw the game away. I remember when Jay Cutler came over, everybody was like, oh, we finally got our quarterback. We finally got our guy. And then all of a sudden he threw like 4 picks to the Packers and gave the game away. And that kept happening. And then it kept happening with every other quarterback except for this one. He threw 2 interceptions this past week. It did not actually affect the end of the game. And when you boil it down, all those things I just gave you, all the negatives that I just gave you, everything I just piled on your list right there, they still could have won the game. They still could have won the game.
That's the one bright spot, right? Is you only lose by 6 points to a team that's going to be a playoff team again this year.
For sure. And it's funny because I actually had a buddy of mine that I do podcasts with. His name is Joe Kelly. I do a podcast called Barguments where we argue, and he's a Philadelphia Eagle native. He's a Philly native. He is all Phillied up. And I was, when I got to work, I said, who was the most disappointing person coming from that Eagles team? Was it DeAndre Swift? Because that guy is clearly not the running back we thought we were getting. Or was it Saquon Barkley for blowing their lead? So what we got, I think the problems that we have are everything, like I said, everything, you shine a light on a dark room, you think everything's okay, and then next thing you know, you see a bunch of stuff you don't really want. I think it's just going to take some time. I think unfortunately, it's going to be by trial by fire. Caleb Williams has got to figure some stuff out. Hopefully he's really smart, but at the end of the day, even with all the weapons there, you still need to be able to execute, and the speed of the game is not going to slow for that guy. Luckily, I think they might actually do pretty good against the Colts here. I think they can probably actually turn some things around. It's just unfortunate that those first two games, they were really tested in ways, which I think we were all thinking, oh, we're going to storm over these guys. But again, a Chicago Bears offense, if we're really going to see one, it's going to, I think until like week 7 or 8 is when we go, that's who Caleb Williams is. Week 1, I still think is like in the NFL right now is you're basing the last real preseason game. When he was doing all those cool moves and we were all bragging, we got our guy, he was going against not even starters. So when you boil it down again, and like I said, Ace, before you jumped on and off, everything I piled on about negative stuff about the Bears, Caleb Williams did not throw any of those games away himself, and they still could have won game 2. So with that being said, I'm still open-minded. It's rough being a Bears fan out here and just having like that halo of the I don't know if I can curse on here, but
yeah, you can.
Yeah,
the bad stuff hits the fan, if you know what I mean. It's one of those things where you're just waiting for the shoe to drop. Hopefully the ship gets righted. Hopefully they figure this out.
You know, and maybe that's why, as like Bears fans, because we're so used to watching it be awful, that because we didn't get, we were all expecting, oh, Caleb, you know, top quarterback prospects since X, since Y. And it just hasn't looked. There's been no consistency on this offense. There's been no rhythm on this offense. Anytime that, you know, especially on Sunday night, anytime you'd see a little rhythm get into second and short, you'd get a false start penalty that pushed you back 10 yards. So then you're looking at 2nd and 14 instead of 2nd and 4. You know, so it's, I know I missed a little bit there, but it's I feel like we're just kind of cursed as Bears fans, where all we get is these subpar quarterback play. We watch Patrick Mahomes go to Kansas City because the Bears decided to take Mitch, and you know everybody knows the history of that. But the Bears probably would have ruined that guy too.
I was going to say, allow me to interject, and you weren't on here before when I said Caleb would have really benefited had they signed someone like Andy Dalton this year, where he could have sat back, watched it, and figured out, okay, from an experienced quarterback, here's what we're looking at, here's what we're doing. Again, we don't have Andy Reid. We have Eberflus. We don't have, I mean, we had Matt Nagy at one point, but he's not a head coach. He's an offensive coordinator. That's where he best is. And the Bears, it's just unfortunate that it's not a place where you develop quarterbacks. That's why Jay Cutler was special, because he wasn't a product that we needed to like actually develop. We just needed to put him in our offense, and hey, we just signed Orlando Pace. Hope that works. Have at it. And that's kind of what we did. So there wasn't really much for these guys to do. And like I said, I give the Bears credit. They did a lot of things this offseason that I've never seen a Bears team do. Unfortunately, it's just not there yet. Fortunately, they have a really good defense. And that Bears defense, that Chicago, what we are known for, that crush them and everything is there for us, that we got. But the problem is when you have an offense like this and you're trying to figure it out, that defense is going to be spending a lot more time on the field than we were hoping they would, which is going to lead to fatigue, injuries, and then eventually Chicago things boil over. So, like I said, week 1, more of an extended preseason. This past weekend was a test. You went against a real quarterback, but again, they still could have won the game.
Right.
They still could have won the game. And he went for 47 yards the first game, and then he threw for 176, and like Aaron Rodgers says, RELAX, relax.
Now,
just see what happens. I'm not the one getting hit. Doesn't matter to me.
Now, Dan, you know, there's been a lot of praise put on Ryan Poles for the things, you know, you mentioned that have transpired over the last couple seasons with the improvement to the wide receiver room, be able to fleece the Carolina Panthers. But then you look at some questionable things like drafting a punter in the 4th round instead of potentially looking at an offensive lineman. What would
that's the worst. I think we
say, man, he was right in the
question.
question. He was right in the question.
Well, I think I know where Ace was going with that one, Dan, so I'll try to step in and fill in the blanks.
I was going to say, if you want to go ahead and he laid it up for us. Dang it. Sorry,
looking at, the moves that he's made, such as drafting a punter in the 4th round, other than potentially taking an offensive lineman in a spot like that. What do you think of Ryan Poles, I guess, let's say his hits as it comes to drafting specifically the offensive line positions? We've gotten Darnell Wright, we've gotten Tevin Jenkins, both guys. Darnell Wright really struggled last week with the false starts. I mean, it's early again, but he's your first round talent that's supposed to lead the line.
The unfortunate thing is, like I said, it is early. It's week 3. It's like I said, I mean, if you want to pick apart every Bears draft we've had for the last 20 years, we can go up and down and go, that was a mistake. That was pretty good. That one got ruined. I have no idea. I mean, I would have much rather him grabbed Caleb Williams. I wish they would have found a way to get Marvin Harris Jr. and Marvin Harrison Jr. And did some of that. Roma Dunze I like, but we don't really know yet. And then there's a part of me that just goes, I mean, if it wasn't Caleb Williams in this draft, I mean, hopefully next year it's all linemen. It's all linemen. Every year they should always, every year, no matter if they have a franchise quarterback or not, pick another quarterback, pick another lineman, pick another quarterback, and do whatever you got to do until Kennedy Urlacher comes out in the draft and get that kid too.
That kid at Notre Dame, you see the shines of his dad totally.
I see the speed that his dad wished he had. That guy is a Tasmanian devil. Absolutely. So I mean, I got my eye on that guy over the next in about 3 years. I want one of those, and I'm pretty sure he would feel very comfortable at home. But
totally agree.
I mean, we can pick this apart. I wish he did not get a punter. That's a stupid move. I think he should have just kind of went and got more offensive linemen. But they probably thought they had some things that they were working on. And you know what? Right now, I'm surprised that there's not about 25 just random 350-pound bodies that are just lining up in Hallis Hall right now. You're up. Put on some pads.
That was one thing we said before you joined was, do you pick up the phone and is it crazy to call a guy like Jason Kelsey and say, here's $40 million to come be the anchor of the Bears offensive line?
$40 million, he is not coming. That's a center we could use. That dude's not coming. We're not getting those kind of guys. I think what you're doing right now is, at this point, you're almost going on Craigslist. You got to find somebody. You got to find some big boy that can just take a hit and give that dude just 3 more seconds in that pocket if he can get it. But again, at the end of the day, all the problems that we have all laid out, they still could have won that game. It still could be 2-0. It still could be. It could have been 0-2. I mean, we can play the what if game all we can, but I still see more progress and less step backs. I didn't see him take a step back yet. I've seen things. I've been disappointed. I've been. I wish that didn't happen. Or in the third quarter, I told my son, let's play some NBA 2K. I can't watch this anymore. And I came back in the fourth quarter because I was like, this is not something I really want to watch because I know what's going to happen. But he did not ruin it. Wasn't ruined. It's still steps. It's progress. Last year, the year before with Justin Fields, we were seeing steps backwards. We were seeing a quarterback unravel. We were seeing a guy who is second-guessing decisions. We went from this is our guy, this is the guy, we got our guy, to let's just send him over to Pittsburgh and figure out again in the draft. So when you boil it all down and you lay it out like that, I'm not optimistic. I still have, but again, I'm not devastated by anything yet. I still think that there is a lot in this dude. I love his personality. I think that he is made for Chicago. He is made for this. And again, they did that, the double picture where they lined it up, him and Justin Fields, where they both had their heads backwards and the bench.
Kind of sitting back, sighing on the bench.
But if you look at that picture, which I've done, Justin Fields looks defeated. Game over, fatality, wrap it up. But with him, you actually saw anger and determination. At least that's what I got from it. So as long as we got that
just
so
a little
far,
bit of exhaustion, right? I mean, obviously being
I don't
tired.
think exhaustion. I think more frustrated. Like I'm pissed.
Okay.
This is I don't want this to happen again. So if that's what I'm feeling right now, like I said, week 2 coming up on week 3, this is my gut feeling. But again, let's talk. Week 8, we'll run this one back again, and I'll say, man, I don't know what the hell I was talking about.
Sounds like a plan. So, Dan, when we introduced you, we talked about some of the different media platforms you're a part of, and historically, I know you've had some really good opportunities to meet some unique sports personalities throughout your career, to say the least. So,
yes,
kind of switching gears, I was wondering if you could maybe just give us one story, one experience from your career that one of your favorite defining moments. I know we talked a little bit about your meeting Joe Namath. If you want to tell that, or if you've got something else you want to share with the audience, we're all ears.
I'm assuming this is a very Chicago audience, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I'll give you a good wow factor, and I'll give you a couple of funny ones, and I'll give you that Joe Namath story. I'll start it off with the Joe Namath because it is Chicago. What's up, Ace? Sorry about that.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna tell you some stories, and hopefully you can stick around for it.
Yeah, let's hope.
In 2007, the Chicago Bears went to the Super Bowl. I know it's weird to say it out loud.
Right.
At the time, I was working for a radio station in Chicago called Q101. It was right after Mancow left. I was kind of doing stuff with them. When he left, a new show took over in the mornings, and I knew the guy. And he said, would you want to still cover Bears games and get audio and blah, blah, blah. And for that season, I was like, I think they may have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And because I'm on the list with the Bears, I got that email that everyone gets when your team is like above 500 at week 6. Do you want to put in credentials for the Super Bowl? Should they make it? Sure did. Next thing you know, they get to the playoffs and I get that email saying, hey, you've been approved. Should they do? Bears go on to get in the Super Bowl. All of a sudden I called these guys up and I said, hey, you know what? At the time I was only dating my girlfriend, now wife, no kids, living on my own. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to go to the Super Bowl. I'm going to pay for it. I got the ticket. I just got to pay for a flight and figure out lodging. I'm going to go. When else can I go? The guy I used to work with at the Mancow show, his name is Al Roker Jr. I actually do another podcast show with him called The Slob Show with my buddy Abe Cannon and him.
Yep.
But at the time, Roker was working with Mancow and has a zillion contacts. I tell him about 3 days before, I say, hey, man, it's my last kind of ditch effort. I'm going to the Super Bowl. I'm going there for like 2 days. I have no idea where I'm staying. I'm just going to go out there and try to figure something out. And he goes, I'll call you right back. And then he calls me 5 minutes later and says, good news, good news, good news. He goes, I just used some points. I scored me a Southwest flight. You're coming with me. We're going to stay with the girls from Penthouse at a hotel in a little bit outside of Miami. I'm renting a car. The only thing I need you to do is on Friday at Media Day, you need to help me course Joe Namath to come to where I'm sitting. We're doing a live broadcast in Media Row. I got the first one. You have to make sure he sits down with me. So we get there, and Media Row at Super Bowl is unlike anything I've ever seen before. It is every sports radio station in the country, every TV show, Jim Rome was there. All kinds of people were there. So I get in this room, and his table is all the way in the back of this room. I mean, you have to find Roker to find where the seat is. So sure enough, 9:00, I go out there. I meet Joe Namath and his handlers, and I go, Mr. Namath, Dan Levy, nice to meet you. We are pretty far in the back. I'm going to walk you over there. And he is like the nicest guy in the world, floating on air. Just, hey, man, nice to meet you. Just kind of happy-go-lucky.
Right.
We walk into this room, and every television station's hot girl anchors, the hot producer girls, they ran over towards him, and he could not talk to them. And at this point, I am literally like almost like what a bouncer does when they're trying to get rid of somebody, where they have their arm locked in the other arm and moving the shoulder up a little bit. And I am carrying this guy. And NFL Network came to him and said, we're snagging you real quick, and just shoved a mic in his face. And the lady goes, I'm so sorry. And I was like, it's cool. It's cool. It was like a 2 minute.
Right.
And then something happened. He goes, oh, I'll be right back. I got to go with this guy. And we ran. I ran with Joe Namath. 2 Rokers, sat him down, put the mic on, sat at another table. I almost had to have a cigarette, man. I was like, hold. And then all these people, hey, man, can you send him over our table? Can you send him our table? Can you send him this? I'm like, this was my job. This is what I came to do.
He's here with us. Once he leaves, that's on him what he does.
I was like, God bless you, because I am done. I thought this was going to be like, oh, just grab Joe Namath. That's how hard could that be? That was pretty hard.
Very cool.
A wow factor story I have. I've had a few of them where it came to anybody in Chicago, anybody in the country, anybody in the world. When you move to Chicago and you start doing sports, and you start covering the Bulls, you want to, what's it like meeting Michael Jordan? What's it like seeing Michael Jordan? Right. And I have a lot of different stories with him, but the one was a wow factor for me because there was the Scottie Pippen retirement jersey night.
Yep.
We had Dennis Rodman come in the radio station. I got to meet Dennis Rodman for the first time. Super cool. There was at the United Center, and they were playing the Lakers because they worked it out where it would be Phil Jackson would be at the actual night out.
Right.
And this was prime Kobe, prime Shaq, prime all those guys and Bulls players. And at the end of the night, it was one of the coolest scenes I've ever seen. It was, you were all in this hallway. I got done with the Laker locker room, and as I got out, there was tons of people everywhere. And all of a sudden, this random door opened up in one of the hallways, and then out walks Phil Jackson. Everybody's going, oh my God, there's Phil. And then out walks Scottie Pippen. Out walks Dennis Rodman. Everyone's like, oh, this is so cool. Then in the back, I feel a tap on my shoulder. It's Shaq. I move out of the way. He walks out. And then after him, I give a dap to Kobe, and he walks out. I actually have Kobe and I had a mutual friend, so we were cool with each other.
Awesome.
And then all of a sudden, Scottie Pippen walked out, and then almost like magic, Jordan walked out. The minute he walked out, it was as if Michael Jackson walked out. All of a sudden, all these flashlights were going off. Place went nuts. And the security guards that I've known for years covering the Bulls at this point went into security mode, and one of them freaking jammed his elbow like right in my sternum. And as he hit me, I went, oh, like this. And Michael Jordan shook my hand.
Oh, wow.
And then he walked off. And the guy's like, Levy, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I just shook Michael Jordan's hand.
I can deal with the pain for this.
I'm gonna go throw up, but that was awesome.
Wow.
And then the one funny story that I always tell everybody is just a pure silly story. The story goes is that I was covering the games, and at one point I was in between jobs, and I was teaching at the Illinois Media School. Did you go there or not? Are you an Illinois Media guy?
I am not an Illinois Media guy, but I know the program very well respected.
Okay, so I was teaching there. It was 2010 when Derrick Rose. It was the Derrick Rose MVP season, and there was a particular game where I was at the school, but then I needed to go straight to the game, and I was like all dressed up, and I was like almost for some reason I was like in a shirt and tie. I was all dressed, but I did not eat anything. I went from Lombard to Chicago, and I was starving, and I missed the lunch or the dinner of the game, and I lived right across the street from the United Center. It wasn't too far away, but I was like, all right, when I'm done, I'm gonna go chow. And they were playing against the Orlando Magic, and usually when other teams come to town, sometimes they have food, brought to them. Sometimes they have a little buffet for the players. They take they'll have like a, little whatever it is. They'll order something from Chicago, grab a tin box, and they'll get on the plane or bus.
Yep.
We walk in the locker room, and there is about 4 tables, rectangle tables, lined up one over the other, filled with Lou Malnati's pizzas, salads, pastas, breadsticks, deep dish, thin crust, everything.
Very
I
nice.
walk in and I see Rashard Lewis, and we're just walking in. He looks at me and goes, I know you hungry. To me, and I'm like, I am starving, man. You can't do this to me. He's like, you can take some, man. I don't care. We ain't gonna care. And I had a pretty decent relationship with Dwight Howard at the time too. And he came out. He'd always go like, "What up, man?" He was kind of making fun of my voice. And he goes, I know you get in on this food, right? I'm like, they're not gonna let me eat any of this food. He's like, He goes, no, man, take the food. Take the food. And I was like, and all the players like, eat it, man. I'm like, I'm good. So I get out. I go back into the media room. I start to grab all my stuff. And one of the ball boys goes, Levy, come here. And I was like, what's up? He's like, come here. And we walked back into the locker room, and it was me, 3 ball boys, Marcin Gortat, and a couple of like 2, maybe 1 or 2 other media people that I knew, and some security guards. And we all stood around this table like it was that last scene of the Goonies with the buried treasure and One-Eyed Willie.
Yep.
And they're all looking at each other, and we're all like, and it was just like, let's do it. And we housed this food, man. We crushed it so hard. When I got done, I walked out and I was like, hey, man, are you going to eat some of that Lubanati? He's not knowing. I was like, I'm going to throw him in. That was way too much pizza, but it was one of the most glorious moments of my career. I was like, very rarely do I get a moment of like, oh, I'm so hungry, and this is Chicago's best food of all time.
Oh, absolutely. That's great. Dan, really grateful that you were able to join us tonight. Really appreciate you giving us some time to chat the Bears, tell a few stories. Before we let you go for the evening, we kind of touched on it earlier, but do you want to let everybody know where they can find you currently, where they can hear you? We did touch on the Barguments podcast, but let everybody know where they can listen to you.
I do a podcast like you guys do. It's called Barguments. It's not on video. It's all audio. And it's just me and my buddy Joe Kelly. And we get a new guest every week. And we just argue about fun topics. It's part interview, part hot topics. And I've had some really cool guests, from Bill Wennington to Exhibit to Richard Roper to even a porn star. We've had all kinds of people grabbing the other stool at Barguments. And it's been a really fun podcast. I'm also on WGN Radio every Monday night with John Landecker, where he and I do a food fight argument where we argue food. Starting tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. on WGN with Bob Surratt. I will be giving places to eat in and around Chicago town. I'll be talking some great places to get a good donut. I'm always on a personal mission to find a Boston cream donut. What's the best one? I am in the search for it. I'll be giving good breakfast places, lunch places, dinner, dessert. We're going to go all over the map. And starting the last couple of weeks, I am now hosting a NFL pregame Sunday show. It's going to be every Sunday at 11 a.m. You can listen anywhere at WIMSradio.com/listen. And we have some really cool guests. I have on a super Chicago sports radio personality, Mike North. He's jumping on with us. I got Shane Reardon from 670 The Score. He's going to give us some tailgating stuff. And it's just a really cool podcast. My 10-year-old does his picks. My son DJ will give his picks of the week. We got a fantasy football insider, Don Klebman from WGN Radio as well. So if you want to follow me, get me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Bass On Air, BASS On Air. I am on all the socials, and you can find all the kinds of stuff that I'll be doing every day there. And if you want to jump on Facebook, I have a Barguments group there where we always kind of just throw out some random topics. So it's kind of what I do in a nutshell, buddy.
Awesome. Yeah, I really enjoy the Barguments group. I will say that I'm in there in the comment section frequently, and I'm a passionate foodie myself. Not credentialed to the level of yourself, but definitely
you're a good arguer. You're a good arguer, and I appreciate the passion.
All right, Dan. Thanks again so much for joining us. We will have to do this again, maybe mid-season, and we can see where the Bears are and whether we were right or wrong about the way this season's going to unfold. So appreciate you, my friend, and hope you have a good rest of your evening. We'll talk to you soon.
I had a blast with you, man. I look forward to jumping on with you again. Tell Ace I'm sorry that he faded off. Hopefully you can see some of the stories. Maybe he'll be entertained by it. Anytime you want to do it again, man, I'm around.
All right. Sounds great, Dan. Take care. We'll talk soon. Dan Levy, everybody. Really great perspective there. Really enjoyed having the storytelling aspect from Dan there. Nothing like hearing experiences from someone in the media as we both grow, Ace and I, through the podcasting platform, trying to make connections to get credentialed media, etc. It's very inspiring and interesting to hear those stories as they come about. So, and Joe Namath, man, what a great story to open with. I mean, talk about no personality in the room bigger than his. That's absolutely the definition of it. So we really appreciate Dan joining the show. We appreciate you guys joining tonight to listen live. We will be back this Sunday with our pregame show out of High Bear Nation right here on the Undefeated Sports Network. As always, please be sure to go like, follow, subscribe to the Undefeated Sports Network. We are on all major social media platforms. Give us a like and follow on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and we do have the Spotify base up and running, so be sure to give us a search there as well. The Undefeated Sports Network, Undefeated Sports Network on all major platforms. Again, on Twitter, give us a follow at Undefeated SN21. And be sure to look for more content coming here in the coming weeks, guys. Again, we appreciate all of you and hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. We will be back with you Sunday morning, and we'll see you then. Have a good night, guys.